Detail and explain about Chernobyl Blast. The Chernobyl disaster was a catastrophic nuclear accident that occurred on April 26, 1986, at the number 4 reactor in the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, located near the city of Pripyat in the north of the Ukrainian SSR in the Soviet Union, now in Ukraine. The accident is considered to be the worst nuclear power plant disaster in history in terms of both cost and casualties, and it is one of only 2 nuclear energy accidents to have been classified as a Level 7 event on the International Nuclear Event Scale, the other being the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster of 2011. The events that led to the Chernobyl disaster began on April 25, 1986, when the number 4 reactor at the Chernobyl power plant was scheduled for a routine shutdown and maintenance. The shutdown was planned to test the effectiveness of the reactor's turbine generator system, which was designed to continue powering essential equipment even in the event of a loss of electrical power. The test was intended to simulate a power outage and test the turbine's ability to generate enough electricity to power the reactor's cooling system until backup generators could be started. However, during the shutdown procedure, a series of mistakes were made by the operators in charge of the test. First, they removed too many control rods from the reactor, which resulted in an increase in the reactor's power output. Then, they switched off several safety systems, including the automatic shutdown mechanism, in order to simulate a power outage. These actions, combined with design flaws in the reactor's graphite-tipped control rods, caused the reactor to overheat and the fuel rods to rupture. As a result, a steam explosion occurred, followed by a massive fire that released large amounts of radioactive materials into the atmosphere. The explosion destroyed the reactor's protective casing and caused a partial meltdown of the nuclear fuel, which in turn released radioactive material into the environment. The explosion was so powerful that it blew the roof off the reactor and caused a huge cloud of radioactive material to be released into the atmosphere. This cloud spread across much of Europe and contaminated large areas of Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. The immediate aftermath of the accident was a chaotic and confusing situation. The reactor staff were not immediately aware of the full extent of the damage and struggled to contain the fire and prevent further releases of radioactive materials. The surrounding area was quickly evacuated, and emergency responders from the Soviet Union and other countries were brought in to help. The Soviet authorities were slow to acknowledge the seriousness of the accident and the extent of the damage it had caused. It was not until several days after the accident that Soviet officials announced that an explosion had occurred at the power plant, and even then, they downplayed the severity of the situation. The Soviet government's handling of the crisis was widely criticized for being secretive and lacking transparency. In the days and weeks that followed, efforts were made to contain the radiation and prevent further releases. The destroyed reactor was covered with a hastily constructed concrete and steel structure, known as the sarcophagus, which was designed to prevent further releases of radioactive material into the atmosphere. However, the sarcophagus was not a long-term solution, and in the years that followed, it began to deteriorate and leak radiation. The immediate impact of the disaster was felt most acutely by the workers at the power plant and the emergency responders who were brought in to help. Dozens of people died from acute radiation sickness in the days and weeks after the accident, and many more were injured. Over the longer term, the disaster has had a significant impact on public health in the region. The release of radioactive materials into the environment has been linked to an increase in cases of cancer and other illnesses, particularly among those who were living in the area at the time of the